All righty. Yosi, when are you going to get started? Want to give it a couple minutes?
Yeah, I'll give it a minute or two and then jump right in.
What are we talking about?
You were going to give us the secret to life, Vinny.
Oh, look at the time. I got to go.
I think today's assignment was how to install ceiling fans more than one time.
So I am a professional at this. Great.
For those of you who are don't know what I'm talking about, I'll fill you in. Vince is experiencing life as a married couple purchasing their first home and putting a ceiling fan up, and then Taylor saying, "I'm not sure if I like it."
I have one that beats that. I have a customer who built a 5,000 square foot home. They lived in it for about 3 months, and I went to see it. All the appliances were on the front porch. She decided she didn't like any of the appliances, and she wanted like wolves and stuff like that. Every built-in appliance they sold on Facebook or something and bought all new ones.
Oh man, that's fun. Jeez. I feel like that's what we were essentially renovating a house that we had no intention of renovating. It's great. The budget model is always the least attended. Like every time.
Right? Well, that's all right.
But it's recorded and we'll put it out.
That's right.
Hey everyone, I'm here, but I am busting around getting ready for 1:30, so you won't see me, but I can hear you.
So don't talk about her.
No,
Lynn is amazing.
I'm always listening.
This is a
That
true
Lynn.
story. All right, Vince, you want to jump in?
Yeah, let's do it. So what was it?
Go ahead.
So the way that I look at it, this is what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the reason that we're all in business. What's the reason that we're in business? Joseph,
Money
to make money. We are in business to make money.
To have experiences that the money funds.
Exactly. Correct. Because money is good for the good that it can do. 100%. So if we think about the whole concept of KW, and one of the, I guess the mission of KW, right? Careers worth having, businesses worth owning, lives worth living. Experiences and then it's what's the rest of it? They just changed this like 2 years ago. Experiences worth giving and experiences worth having and something else, but lives worth living. So that happens by creating a profitable business. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And I want to go back. So in the budget model, and it's the third model of the MREA, right? There are a couple foundational pieces to and laws to the budget model. But what I also want to go and talk about first is the way to think about the way that money flows through our business to create profit. So do I have the ability to share screen? Yes, I do. So I'm just going to go to this page. So who knows what, let's first look at the old way of thinking. This is a typical way of thinking, but we're in business to create a profit, right? This is from what we call Profit Camp. If you haven't had the opportunity to attend Profit Camp, I would absolutely go and do so. This world of Zoom has made training and great minds so accessible. So I'm sure it's on the training calendar somewhere, or if you're interested in it, let us know and we'll direct you to the link. But this old way of thinking, so it's income comes in, so gross commission income. I sell a house, I charge 3%, and I get GCI. And then out of that GCI comes cost of sale. Who knows what cost of sale is? Does anybody?
All of your costs of doing business?
Yes, it's exactly that. Cost of sale. It's the cost of doing business. Now, what's included in that? Number one, it's your split, your company dollar split to the company, right? Number two, it's your royalty split. So you've got the 20% or the 30% and the 6%. or 20% and 6%, whatever you're on. And then you've got referral fees. So for example, I see Lauren on here, and I know that a lot of the Coastal Edge team business comes from agent referrals, right? That deal does not happen without that referral fee going out. So that referral fee, that 25% referral fee, would be considered a cost of sale. After that, we have our expenses. Our expenses then also come out of our income. And we're going to talk a little bit about the percentage of our expenses compared to our GCI and what that should be. And that's going to be the kind of the nuts and bolts of the budget model. But then you've got your profit. That's what you're left over with. That's this idea of an old way of thinking. What we want to start to do is think about how much money we want to make and start to set that aside first. That's called the profit first model. And what happens there is you've got your income, then you've got your cost of sale. But then I want to start to think about, okay, now let's take out the money that is a percentage of the profit based on my profit goal at the end of the year. So if I wanted to make $100,000, I'm going to take a percentage of that out of each closing and put that in my profit account, because that $100,000 should be earmarked as spent on something, right? There's a why behind our profit. And then you've got your owner's salary. We're always paying ourselves. Then you've got your expenses. So in the book, Profit First, I have it over here somewhere, but there's a concept, and I can't remember the name of the law, but there's a concept about kind of using everything that we have. We talk a lot about like cleaning our plate, right? When we were kids, we were always told, clean your plate, clean your plate. Well, and I couldn't have dessert without cleaning my plate and eating everything, including all the vegetables. It was horrible. However, that gets ingrained in us. We get conditioned to that way of thinking. Finish, right? Whatever it is that's in front of us. We don't want to think about finishing everything in our bank account, though, which is why it's so important to run a budget so that at the end of the day, we have money left over. The other part is, have you ever had, like, we think about our toothpaste tube, right? I know it's a weird analogy, but we think about our toothpaste tube, the new one comes out of the box, and we usually get a week or so until all of a sudden it looks like there's nothing left in the toothpaste. However, then we get 2 more weeks out of that little bugger because we squeeze it for everything it's worth. That's what we have to think about from a business perspective. If we restrict and we have less access to something, for example, if we pay ourselves first and then we have X amount left over for expenses, we're going to be able to get every little bit out of that expense if we think about it this way. This is just a new way of thinking. Do you have anything you want to add to that real quick, Joseph? So I think you've taken that course.
No, I just love, like you said, it's just a new way of thinking. It's taking it, it's putting it basically as an expense line item on there.
Exactly.
So it's not optional.
100%. So with that way of thinking kind of outlined, because that's what we're going to go back to a lot. And if you want, you can always, I'm sure I can find, there's a Life by Design sheet that helps you break down, like, okay, here's my personal expenses. Here's the profit that I want at the end of the day. Now, and how do I come up with that profit number? And then we all actually spend that profit number so that we can identify exactly how much we want to make by the end of the year and really put a why around it. We can get to that another time. But now I want to really dive into the actual nuts and bolts of the budget model. So if you turn in your MREA to page 153, there are three concepts and kind of key areas to the budget model that we have to understand. The very first is this concept of leading with revenue. All that means is don't spend money you haven't yet created. Has anybody ever seen Field of Dreams? You know that movie, Field of Dreams? And the whole thing is based off of
ever.
What was that?
Best movie ever.
Best movie ever. And the whole concept is if you build it, they will come. Terrible business model.
Well, and Kevin Costner, but keep going.
Kevin Costner is spectacular. So if you build it, they will come. Bad business model, because if they don't come, you're really in a mess, right? And we've just depleted, we've just spent money, and we've led with expenses. We haven't led with revenue. The beauty of real estate is that the cost of entry, the barrier to entry rather, and the cost of getting into the industry and the cost of growing a business can be so small. It's probably the lowest of any industry, honestly. And I don't know that for a fact, but I would probably put money on that. It's so low because we can spend more time doing the activities on page 138, right, to generate income and then start to add marketing. That's why we always talk in the lead gen model about prospecting based, marketing enhanced. So lead with revenue. That's the number one key. Number two is play red light, green light. Playing red light, green light simply means understand what it means to win with that investment and track the return of that investment. I'll be honest, it makes absolutely no sense to spend $1 and just make $1 back. That's a way, it's inefficient. It's a waste of energy. It's a waste of the dollar. And honestly, because of time value of money, you just lost money anyway. If you just spend $1 to make $1 back, why not just not spend $1? So we want to identify, if I spend this $1, how much do I want to make in return for this $1? And so that I can keep on spending that $1 and identify that, hey, this is a good investment. That's called playing red light, green light. For example, you'll hear people talk about a 6-to-1 return. From a market center perspective, Joseph and I always look at the expenses on a monthly basis, usually even more than that, honestly. And we identify in each expense what we want from a return standpoint. And we're always saying, okay, what's the return on that money? Are we getting a 3-to-1 return? Are we getting a 2-to-1 return? Are we getting a 6-to-1 return? And are we okay with that return? That's what playing red light, green light's all about. So that's the second key. Here's the other piece to that real quick. Most of the time in a really good market, you'll have cost creep. And that's on page 155 there in the middle. In a really good market, we get blinded by the fact that revenue is still coming in, and we let our costs increase. And when things change from a revenue perspective, now all of a sudden our expenses are maybe 5 or 10 or 20% more than they should be. So then you've got the last concept, and the last key is called stick to the budget. This one's a simple one. And the reason it's such a simple one is we can just outline based on our ROI and based on the other two pieces and the other two keys, right? Leading with revenue and playing red light, green light. If we're doing those two things, we're usually going to be sticking to the budget. And the best thing about the budget model is we have, through research, identified that the minimum profit potential of a real estate business is 40%. So what does that mean? That means that when I make $1 from a revenue perspective, at minimum, I should, at the end of the day, in my pocket as profit, have 40 cents, right? So if I make $1,000, right, at minimum, I should have $400. Does that make sense? Now, here's the best part about being, if you're an independent agent or an individual agent rather, that number should be way higher. And I know, Joseph, you kind of talk about in business planning, that number being closer to 60%, 70%.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, it can be, especially with individual agents, right? And within the price point that we have in this market, you can definitely get away with that. The challenge, and this is kind of spilling over a little bit to the organizational model, is you're not leveraged.
Yep.
You may be making a higher profit margin, but if you step away from it, it goes down.
100%. And by the way, I want to go back real quick to cost of sale. Well, rather, I'll go through the actual budget model first. And then I want to make a comment to you, Lauren, around how this impacts your P&L, given the fact that you're on a team. So revenue comes in, then we have our cost of sale. We know that 30% on average, our cost of sale should be about 30%. And this, you can see this. Actually, I can pull it up right here. Does anybody know what MREA stands for, by the way? You're muted. Millionaire Real Estate Agent, right? So we
Yeah.
know that that's what we're trying. That was the intention of the book is what are the models that are being utilized by those individuals netting $1 million in real estate? So at 2.5 million is when you're going to net $1 million based on a lot of research. So when we talk about the budget model, we're talking about that my cost of sales should be 30%, right? That's the referral fees. That's my split to the company. It's also any splits to team members. So if I have a buyer's agent, that cost of sale, right? That split going to that buyer's agent is going to show up in my cost of sale. And then you've got your gross profit, and then you've got your expenses. Your expenses should be no more than 30% of your GCI, which then is going to give you a net income of at least 40%. I say all the time, minimum profit potential of a real estate business is 40%. It should be no lower. We want it to be much higher. The reason that it's 40% at $1 million, at a net $1 million, is because of all the money that you're going to have to spend on leverage, right? As you start to scale in the organizational model, that's when you're going to see your expenses increase from a dollar perspective, but your margin decrease, but the amount of money you're actually making is increasing. Does all that make sense? So now when we come down to the categories of the budget model. So great, Vin, the minimum profit potential of my business is 40%. I want it to be higher. Good, I'm glad. And then it's, well, and if my expenses are supposed to be no more than 30% of my GCI, how do I spend those expenses? Well, who knows what the two biggest expenses from a real estate business, or really any business, are? What are the two biggest expenses?
Marketing.
Good. So marketing, I have it up here too.
Labor,
But, so
like
it's
salaries.
yep, it's always salaries.
Salaries.
So your people and your lead gen. They actually make up about 70% of your overall expenses. In the MREA, they call it your big two, right? So if I know that, and I know that I'm an individual agent, most likely I'm not going to have one of these. I'm not going to have salaries. So automatically I'm going to have the opportunity to take that percentage right back into my profit, into my margin. But then we look at it and we say, well, what should my lead gen spend be? If I so choose to have a spend, by the way. Because let's go back to the number one key. What was the number one key in the lead gen model? Lead with revenue, right? You're muted or something. It's your new microphone, probably.
To me?
Yeah.
No, I wasn't. I was trying to let somebody else talk. I was mouthing it, hoping someone would.
So lead gen. So lead with revenue is your number one key. If you determine that you want to go and build your business with time on the front end, right, to get money, right, which is what the book talks about, and then you're going to identify, okay, well, I'm going to keep some of that money in my business and create more business. Now I'm going to play red light, green light. 10% of your GCI, no more than 10% of your GCI should be spent on lead gen. Then you've got a lot of smaller expenses down here, but we don't have to get into the nitty gritty of that. What we really want to identify is, what do we want to spend, and does it fit within the model? And are we happy with the profit margin? Because at the end of the day, there are only three ways to increase the money that we make in real estate. Does anybody, if we had to take a guess, what would be the three ways that we can make more money in real estate from a budget standpoint?
Sell more houses.
Okay, perfect. So make more revenue. Sell more houses and increase my revenue. That's number one. 100%. Number two would be what?
Reducing expenses.
Cutting expenses. Yes. And then number three, it's in line with cutting expenses. It's the one other thing that we can cut that we went through. It's on the page right under GCI. Decrease our cost of sales. So if I know that I want to increase my profit, I have to either increase my revenue, sell more houses. I have to decrease my cost of sales, right? Or I have to decrease my expenses. So if at the end of the day, I got to a profit margin of 60% and I made X, and I want the following year to make Y, but I want to do it in the same amount of time, I'm going to only be able to pull one of those three levers to do so. I just have to identify which one to do it. What questions do you have around the budget model? And Joseph, kind of feel free to jump in and fill in anything that I missed.
Let's see. I mean, I've just got a couple things, but I want to make sure anybody has any questions. So, you know, for a lot of you, if you haven't set any of this up and you haven't even started doing this, it's going to be a little overwhelming. So just take it chunks at a time. And I think the two big things to do would be number one, set up a separate bank account if you haven't done so, right? If you haven't set up a separate account completely for your business expenses, go ahead and do that. And a lot of people would even recommend go as far as to say have it in a different bank altogether. We did that with our business for about 10 years to stay in the habit so you're not easily transferring money back and forth. And then the second thing is just to start tracking those numbers. You know, use QuickBooks. There's a chart of accounts that you can get from, you can download from K2B Connect, and then get into the routine, right? That's the big thing we talk about in the business planning clinic, is getting into that routine of visiting your numbers on a regular basis. And if you're rebuilding your business or you're new in the business, sometimes you might hesitate to do so because you look at a P&L and there's not a lot of profit, right? There's a lot more L than there is P. So we want to look at it. Don't do that though, right? That's, you know, one of the things, if you've heard me tell the story, you know, when Lynn and I first started our business together, this is after I'd been a team leader and she had run a successful business. We financially were not doing well that first year. And had we not been running our P&L, we never would have known. And it could have been disastrous for us because we wouldn't have been paying attention. So just, you know, start baby steps, set up your separate account, put some seed money in there, and then run your business out of that. That's how you hold that accountable, right? With the red light, green light, and everything with that, and then start tracking those numbers.
I'll show you a really simple way to start doing this. This is a very basic template that you can use, and I'll get it to Lynn, and Lynn will share it out to those individuals on the call, if you don't mind, Lynn. But and we can just use it as a resource moving forward. This is a very simple template.
That's great.
Perfect. So it's a real simple template that we can utilize to understand and track my income coming in each month, the amount of company dollar that's going out, what my gross profit after my company, my cost of sales is, right? Now, basically the money I have to work with to then pay my expenses. And I talked about that new way of thinking. I'm a big advocate of paying myself first. And then I'll figure out the money I have left over to pay my expenses to generate more revenue. I always talk about time and money, right? We only really have and we're always using time and money to buy or pay for the other thing. As a newer agent into the business, typically I'm going to have more time because I don't have as many deals going, right? Than I do money to spend to create more deals. So I'm going to use sweat equity. I'm going to use blood, sweat, and tears, so to speak, and prospecting mechanisms, which are cheaper, to go and generate more money. That's going to take time. As I go and I invest that time into those activities, money is going to increase, time is going to decrease, because now I'm going to have all these deals going and I'm going to have less time to generate money, right? By going out and door knocking, so to speak. Well, one, I want to make sure that I'm always time blocking for that. But two, now I'm going to start to use money to buy some more time. Does that make sense? I'm only going to know that I can do that, though, is if I'm tracking the money that I'm creating. And that's why a P&L is so necessary. We forget that we're in business and we're running our own businesses. This isn't a job, this is running a business. And if you don't track the numbers and you don't track the money that's in that business, we're gonna have a problem. So now I can see my expenses, I can see my total profit. And on this, I can even see how much income or what my tax liability is going to be. Right? Because I'll tell you, Uncle Sam will come and knock it. So you want to make sure that you have that money in a separate account as well. And then you have your net income. So the reason, Joseph, why do we break out the listing and sales income here?
Well, the big thing is to track to make sure we have a balance.
Exactly.
Right? To understand that, where's our money coming from, because going back to this, the overall model of the MREA is the more balance you have towards the seller side, or more weight you have towards the seller side, the more leverage your time is.
100%.
Yep. So the health of the business. I mean, we look at that on a monthly basis with the market center as well.
Yeah. Nancy, you had a question?
This might be too complicated for this, or too, intense for this class, but so do you pay yourself a certain amount? Is it a percentage? Is it a certain amount? I tend to, when I have money, I have a business account, I have a business credit card. So the money goes in there. I put some in business savings. I put some in business. Then I transfer some to my personal. And then I have it there in case I don't have a month where I make something, but I don't know the mathematical equation, or is there one, or how should we handle that?
So number one, I'm going to hedge and say, talk to your CPA. Number one. Right. So it's very, very important to talk to a CPA and get advice. Number two, again, going back to what I believe is we're in business. A lot of us are running our businesses and we're living off of the income that's generated out of that business, which is why I'm such a big advocate of doing my goals based on how much I need to make based off my personal budget. So now I'm going to pay myself a salary, and this is how they teach it in Profit Camp. So it's very similar to the MREA. It's the same concept, but you're just paying yourself first. If say my expenses are $3,000 a month, just throw a number out there. Say my expenses are $3,000 a month, right? My personal expenses. Now every month I know that I'm going to pay myself $3,000, or I'm going to need $3,000. So that I know, so that everything else is okay. Or if we're not okay over here from a personal standpoint, we're not going to be okay over here. It's my thought process, at least. And because I think it's all intertwined, right? So I'm going to have $3,000 coming out every month to pay my personal expenses. Now I know when I plan and I go back to the economic model, I need to take that into consideration, plus my additional expenses. So now I'm going to now $3,000 times 12, that's $36,000. When I go and I plan based on my profit, how many units I'm going to sell, I better make sure that I took into consideration that $36,000 of added expense to pay myself. Does that make sense? So
what you would do is, like, the first of the month, you put $3,000 from your business account as a salary into its personal account. I would run it, me personally, and Joseph, you can speak to how you do it if you'd like. Me personally, I would literally, on one day of every month, on a very consistent day of every month, I would pay myself a salary, as long as I was treating this like a business and I was running it as an LLC, and I talked to a CPA. And then from there, I would create a profit based on what I had left in the business after the expenses. And that profit would then go toward whatever the goal that I had at the end of the year. So if I had $100,000, I'm a big advocate of literally putting things to that. Like, I do a lot of consulting with some of the top 20% agents. And we will literally spend the profit that they want to generate. I had one individual that wanted to make $70,000 in profit, but that's $70,000. And the reason they wanted to make that $70,000 was it went to a Volvo. It went to a vacation and one other thing, right? One other personal thing. So on top of that, she already knew that she was taking X amount of money out of her business above the line. So then we could identify how many units they sold. Does that make sense? Joseph, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, to going back specifically to Nancy's, I mean, create a habit. So what a lot of people have done, what we've done is, we treat our household budget kind of the same, where we have a certain amount in reserves that can carry us, that we don't need to take money from the business unless we get to a certain point. we do the same thing. We set a goal to always have a minimum of 3 to 5 months worth of carrying expenses in our business account. So that way we didn't get into the habit of just taking money from the business without tracking the profit side of it. Now that has changed. And we were just reminded it's 1:31, sorry. That has changed now, and we kind of focus more on the lower number, right? But in the beginning, we kept it at a higher number just in case, because the expenses, or excuse me, the income was so cyclical.
Let me make one more point, and then, sorry, Lynn. This also comes down to a comfort thing. So if you're comfortable having just going month to month from a account standpoint, fine. If you're comfortable with 6 months, awesome, right? There's a book called The Psychology of Money, and it talks about rational versus reasonable, right? We're humans. Most of what we're going to be doing is based on reason, not rational thinking, right? So from the standpoint of, if it stresses me out to have any less than 3 months of business expenses in my business account, then don't go any lower than 3 months. Right? If I'm okay with 6, or if it stresses me out at 6, that's how you're going to really get the feel for what you want to do in your business. Because the model is the model. But if we do the model as it's written, it might not fit for our business. We might come out looking like Frankenstein. We want to flex the model so that it works for us. Hope that helps. Awesome. Any questions on the budget model before the accountability piece?
Are you keeping that reserve money that you're talking about, whether that's 3 or 6 or whatever you're comfortable with? Are you keeping that in a business account or in your personal savings account?
So we have both our personal and our business set up the same way. Both of them, we have what we call a restricted account and an operating account. And so our restricted account is where all money goes in, and our operating account is everything that's paid out. So that way we can control what goes in the operating. So we keep roughly 2 months in our, you can do this however, this is how we did it. We would keep roughly 2 to 3 months in our restricted, and then 1 month in our operating. And then that way we're only having to move money once a month.
Okay.
And we basically do the same thing on the personal side. In the Profit First model, they actually said the profit, if you read the book Profit First, it actually really breaks down a way in which you can run your bank accounts. You actually set up like 5 or 6 bank accounts, and it's based off of like kind of human emotion. Most of the time, again, back to that fill the plate thing or finish the plate thing, most of the time we're going to drain anything we have access to. So when we restrict our profit account, they actually advise you to put your profit account in another bank, in which it takes 2 to 3 days to get that money out. Like you have to actually go there to take the money out, and it's very restrictive to get that money out of the profit account, right? So that we don't see it and then just take it on out. I run everything based on a P&L, but I don't look at the profit account. I'll run everything and I'll look at maybe the number on the bottom of the page, but restrict that access. It's a big number. It's a big piece. Whatever's going to work for you.
Yeah, ours literally say CLOSIC operating, CLOSIC restricted, and then S&P operating and S&P restricted. That's our nickname, just so we never forget. And so when we talk to each other, I'll say, do I move this out of restricted or operating or whatever? So we're literally that basic.
And to Vince's point, we take it down to the bare minimum standard we have. So it's not available to easily go in and take it out. Like when we close our month out, it's just, we don't want to have a huge amount of reserves, just because you'll be tempted to go in there and be like, oh, the money's in there, spend it.
Yep.
All right. Sorry we ran late, Lynn.
That's okay. It was a great conversation. Actually, I was having some technical difficulties, so that worked out. I'm about to share my screen. Is everyone good with running a little bit over 2 o'clock? I just am seeing that we're going to about 2:15 every time. So I'm allotting the time for that. So just go ahead and setting those expectations now. And if we wrap up early, we wrap up early, but I just want to make sure that's kind of what I'm seeing. So I don't want to be too strict on the time because this Friday is super important to everything. So thank you guys for everything you did. It was an awesome class. I guess I'm the only one who thought that.
Oh, thank you.
That's good.
Thank you.
It's
Okay,
the budget
everybody.
model. It's the most boring
Right,
to
yeah.
listen to.
But you know what? That's just it. Like, I don't think it's boring at all. It is literally, it's your boundary. It's how you know you're going to make it in this career or not.
Really is, yeah.
Without that, you're going to be out of the business in a year because you're never going to know. You're just going to live like it's an allowance, and that's not how you run a business. So it's exciting if you look at it as I'm not going to go bankrupt and then have to do it again. I'm actually setting the parameters now right here in the beginning of my business. So that should give you a huge sense of peace, is my point.
That's the point of business, right? When like the point of business is sustainability and continuation. And if we're not if we're not looking at our money and we're not running our business with a P&L, the chances of continuing are relatively low.
Right.
Well,
And it's just smart. So thanks, guys. Now we'll get started with holding you accountable to what you said you were going to do versus what you actually were able to do, and then how we can help you on that. So I've set up the agenda.
Good luck, guys. Let us know if you need anything.
I can roll.
Okay, I set up the agenda because I want to add some, I want to kind of add a little challenge to y'all this week, but we'll talk about that towards the end of the call. But we're basically going to do the same thing, which is we're going to talk about what our goal was. We're going to talk about how we did, how you felt about it, and then, you know, what is your next week's goal. So what I've done, what I keep doing now is I basically, when y'all are sending me your emails, I just copy and paste on this ongoing document that I'm only working with, of like basically everything you sent me from day one. So, or first week. So we're now on the third week. And I'm going to do a roll call to see who's here. Hold on. So we talked about the agenda. I'll come back to that. Okay. So it's easier for me just to look. All right. We have I'm just writing your names down. By the way, I see them because that's how I'm going to call on you, is basically how you're showing up on my screen. All right, here's going to be the order. Jeremiah, Lauren, Anisha, Nancy, Jenna, and Celeste. That's kind of the order I have you written down. So you guys are here. Welcome back. I'm so glad to have you. What we're going to do is we're going to go over, I'm just going to start with Jeremiah and basically say, I'm pretty sure did not send me any email following last week with any new big rocks, correct? Okay, so I don't have anything that I copy pasted. So now you just tell me quickly what your 3 rocks were this week and what you've got done.
I rolled over two from last time, reaching out, building a referral network with specific locations around Air Force bases that match a travel pattern here. All my tax documentation is together. I just have to file it. And what was the other one? I don't remember the other one.
E, continuing education, something with that?
Oh yeah, that was it. I did one of the 3 classes that I've enrolled in for CE.
All right. So you had 3. You sounds like you fully completed 1, but then you had a couple of others that you're just still working on.
Correct.
Okay. You keep tracking yourself because you're going to know all those ins and outs, and then we'll make a plan for next week. All right. Good job. We'll come back to kind of an open discussion on everything in a minute. All right, Lauren, your 3 and how you did on them.
My 3, I had 1 to order a for sale sign. I know that seems really simple, but I had a listing appointment this week. I got my first South Carolina listing, yay. And it's not going active for about 4 to 6 weeks. So I needed to get that freaking sign ordered and quit putting it off. So I did actually get that done, and my first sale signs are on their way.
Listen, that's a big deal. I mean, it's those little things that you have to be a real estate agent. So that makes sense. Okay. So you ordered your for sale sign. And by the way, I found your list. So I'm going over it with you.
Okay.
Okay. What are your other two?
And then there was one on there about making a YouTube channel, which I think Celeste talked about last time, having one. So I did get one created and uploaded some videos to it. I've spent quite a bit of time trying to learn more about how to do YouTube. So I'm feeling good about it, but wanting to carry that on to next week because there's just so much more I want to do with.
I mean, that could be an ongoing weekly job the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Okay, so you got that one and you actually kind of knocked out some of the big parts of it. Okay.
Yeah.
And the second one was all those follow-up calls. How'd those do?
Yeah, the rest of it, my next big one was I added all these smart plans the week before and so it's sending me tasks. So my goal was to keep up with all those tasks. I did not. I have about 10 of them that are sitting there in the past due. So I found out that you can actually stagger when the plans start, if that makes sense. So you don't end up with 20 calls you're supposed to make one day. So I need to go through and maybe stagger some of them, but Command is a work in progress.
Okay.
Learning those smart plans.
That's okay. And we're gonna unpack some of this. But you answered the question, which is you have some really big tasks you're taking on that aren't gonna get completed in a week. The bottom line is you're doing it. I want to ask questions too at the end. Part of the forum is to everyone. So be thinking about this. Do you have an ongoing time block in your calendar for this ongoing project? Like a for sale sign order is one and done. If you have an ongoing project, I want to find out if y'all are time blocking. Okay. So we got through yours. Good. All right. Next one, Anisha, let me go look and see. I don't think you emailed me anything. So I think it's just you telling me today. What were your 3 and what did you get done? I think you're muted.
I completed my 10 floors this week and I'm studying on my scripts and also I'm almost finished with my buyer's presentation.
Did you send it to me?
No, I haven't. No, I haven't.
Okay. I got a few this weekend. Celeste, I actually just wrote back and said, I'll get to it this weekend. I've been swamped. So, Celeste and someone else sent me theirs and I haven't been able to edit it. So Anisha, what's funny is so I have your measurables or your rocks from the first week, but you weren't here last week. So
No,
you're moving those forward and just keep working on that. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So did you you're accomplishing your 10-4 daily? You're doing that daily?
Yes.
Good job. And so you're lead generating, you time blocking,
Yes.
is part of it, and you're working on your scripts and buyer presentation.
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, I have yours from last time.
Okay.
Okay. So because you weren't here last week, the one thing that I think I did get from you, hold on. I got to figure out a better system for this on how to yeah, I don't have the numbers of appointments you need to hit every month, but we'll get to that. I'll get a better system. Don't you fret. I'm just still learning it a little bit. Okay, next one up will be Nancy. Your 3. I know I have yours. You emailed them to me. You 2 of y'all emailed me the day of our last Friday. Good job. All right, so dang it. Hold on. Nancy, there we go. All right. I see your 3. How'd you do?
First of all, if I don't do it that day, I'll forget. So that's why I do it at that class.
I hear
I did not send out, one of the things was to send out a blast, April showers blast. I didn't do that because I thought it was too close. It wasn't close enough to April, so I'm going to do that this week. So that's going to be on my list. I read the pages and I got 2 out of 3, 2 out of 3 new contacts for my Charleston contacts. I did.
Okay, cool. All right, Jenna, you also emailed me. Let me pull you up on my printout. Hold on. There we go. Go ahead. How'd you do?
did really well this week. Finished all his note cards and actually got a response on one of them. So I'm hoping this person decides to sell their lot. That would be great for my client.
Yeah.
With the tagging, I think Lauren, you're the one who told me I could bulk tag. I did all 600 instead of my 100. That was my goal, I think. But that was way easier.
Nice.
Just to bulk it. And I was able to delete some people I had in there double. So that felt good. And then social media posts on Facebook, I did that too. One more I want to do, but I'm working that. So it was productive.
Okay, so I didn't, one thing I didn't see about the contact information from your event. I didn't see that.
Oh, did I buy with sellers? The class, you mean?
No, so from the week prior, no, you had written me saying the week prior, you said get all the contact information from the attendees. We talked about this.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Okay. And I think I just didn't make a note. All right. So never mind. You covered everything. All right. So you feel really good about everything you did. Perfect. Last one would be Celeste. I have yours. Give me 2 seconds. Yours was very organized and detailed. So, all right. What were your 3 and how'd you do?
So my 3, my first one was to tour a property on Kyoto and send a virtual tour to several folks that are moving into town or that want to move into town, kind of just to entice them and see what's going on in the market. That property went under contract and there was nothing else under $1 million on Kiowa. So I did not do that. I'm still working to I'm behind on my doing the database. Still working on those for, last week, I think B, E, and
Right.
S.
B, E, and S, yeah.
And I did do, my third goal was to do, I'm trying to pull it up. Was it, interview, I did a Zoom interview with mortgage lender contact.
Yeah.
And I was supposed to do one with an insurance broker contact today, but we bumped that to next week. The mortgage broker went very well. And then I turned that into a newsletter that was sent out with a St. Patty's Day theme, and like follow your own pot of, or real estate for your own pot of gold. And that did really, really well. So didn't get everything.
Hey, but I mean, that's the thing, is that's part of, like, just like I'm saying, I need to figure out a better system to be able to follow up with y'all in person. You're figuring out your system too. We're all in that same path. I think that we should, that by maybe the 6th week, y'all all should have a much more realistic idea of what you're going to be able to do, how well you're going to be able to execute it, and then make sure that you're doing it or creating a time block that's realistic. But I don't think we're there yet. I think we're still kind of learning how that's going to work. And as you know, as I've seen all of y'all kind of tell me, you can be working in your business, and then all of a sudden something happens where you have to go work on the business, and all of a sudden you have to halt the in business work. And so that's also part of a real estate agent, is figuring out how to erase when it gets erased, how to replace it. Make sure, like, I mean, a big part of being a real estate agent, in my opinion, is if you have 7 days a week. And in the beginning, you're probably going to work on some level every day of that week. So if you know that you're learning that things are going to get pushed to the next day, then you need to make sure that your 6th and 7th day of your week, you leave a lot of gaps open to be able to dump those activities in there to make sure you meet your own goals. So don't book your whole week up yet. And sometimes that applies to social stuff. Like that first year of my life in real estate, first year and a half, I couldn't make plans with anybody on the weekends, because I mean, where I used to have a totally free weekend, that all changed. And it became where if I want to make it in this business, I have to keep 3 hours open every Saturday and Sunday in case I can put an open house in there. And if I don't do an open house, then who am I following up with on Saturday that left me a voicemail on Wednesday, but I couldn't call them back. You know what I'm saying? So there's so much you have to think ahead of yourself until you get your system in place. So anyway, all of that, great answers to everyone, or, in engagement. Let me ask this. I want y'all to do this if the answer is yes, obviously. So raise your hand. How many of y'all are making daily phone calls that are specifically to pursue real estate? All right, I'm only seeing 2. Am I correct? Nancy and Jeremiah. Okay. How many of you are daily writing notes to follow up to any real estate conversations you might have had, assuming you have their mailing address? Again, raise your hands. Okay, 3. Good. All right. How many people are daily either meeting face-to-face with people or scheduling some sort of coffee, something personal that might be face-to-face? How many people are actively pursuing that part of your real estate business as well? Okay, 3. Now, that is not to say you're called out now. What I want to say, what I don't want us to get in the trap of, which I have done, I'm basically running this show because I've made all these good decisions and poor decisions in my first couple of years. Don't get so bogged down on those things that aren't money-making tasks that you forget to do the money-making tasks, because then you're going to get to month 6 and have an amazing foundation and no clients. And then you're going to be very discouraged and wonder what you've done wrong. So I want to point that out, because what I'm seeing happening a lot is so we've got this great process going, which is you're getting into the habit of naming things, doing them, and then reporting them. That's big check number 1. Good on you. Now, my job is to drill down on those 3 and make sure I'm keeping y'all focused on what's going to actually pay your bills. So it's not, I don't want you to ever perceive it as you didn't do it good enough, but now I'm going to have to start watching where the rubber hits the road, right? So as we move into these next couple of weeks, and then this keeps going, if y'all just keep, because here's what's going to happen. If I don't have these conversations and help you think of this, then you're going to show up for week 6 and be like, this is pointless, because all I'm doing, I keep doing these activities. Where is the business? So it's my job to keep kind of challenging those off book questions to make sure I'm keeping you on point so that you have a balance of hard work and spinning your wheels. And then you have a reward, which is a client meeting or a contract or a closing. So that is what I want to kind of talk about. Is anyone, I want to have a little feelings check. My old boss, before I got into residential, I worked with a commercial guy, and I mean, he was like an uncle. We'd have a feelings check every week. Just the 2 of us worked together to make sure nobody was upset. So I loved that. He taught me how to kind of like check in with your employees while you're working hard together. So y'all aren't my employees, but let's have a feelings check. How is everyone feeling? Are you discouraged, or are you feeling good about things and you feel like something's on the horizon? Go ahead, Nancy.
It's difficult because I'm in Bucks County still, and I wrote 2 offers and I have a listing coming up. So I'm kind of doing this class to try to work on my stuff in Charleston, but I'm really busy right now. So it's kind of hard to say.
Okay. So you should be encouraged because you're seeing some reward. You're seeing some, you are having a paycheck activity. So you're in that stress, you're in a tension where you have business, but you can't take your eye off of creating the systems for your business. So you're actually in a good stress place. So you're right where you should be. Try to keep balancing. All right. Anyone else? Let's talk. Tell me. Go ahead, Celeste.
I'm feeling pretty encouraged. I had a closing on Wednesday that went, thank God it closed. It was one of those, gosh, it was just such a pain. And had a social coffee a few weeks ago that turned into a listing appointment referral. So that was really cool. So lots of little fires in the works. So definitely feeling encouraged.
Good. I'm really glad to hear that. That's important. All right. Anybody else want to bring me with something else? Go ahead, Jenna.
I'm feeling encouraged because I'm slowly leading up to going back full time right now, and hitting these rocks is helping. And I have a listing that'll be coming up soon. And I was actually able to get my vaccine this week unexpectedly because I got a call back when my husband went. So I feel like I'll be able to go out again. Like that's been making it hard to do one-on-one meetings personally because we've got some family medical conditions. So encouraged for sure to start working like a regular person.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. All right. Lauren, Anisha, Jeremiah, do y'all want to share? You don't have to. Go ahead, Lauren.
On one end, I'm feeling really encouraged because I had this listing appointment yesterday and got it. And it's from moving to Charleston a year ago and not doing real estate and getting back into real estate at the beginning of this year. It's the first listing appointment I've been on in a really long time. So I was excited that it went as well as it did. It felt like riding a bike, so that was really encouraging. But I am definitely still discouraged by just the difference between working with people who are maybe not friends and family, but know someone who knows someone, like they knew of me, even if they didn't know me. Now working with a bunch of strangers, like they don't really want to work with you. And like how much I have to call them and how much they just completely ghost me and don't respond to any of my calls or texts or emails for weeks on end that's hard. It's really tough trying to work with people who don't even, have no connection to you, and you're trying to like make them want to work with you.
So you're talking like internet leads or cold calls or sign calls, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, even so most of my leads right now are internet leads, or I have some referrals that are people that I'm on a team, so they referred them to Jessica and we're trying to pass them to me, but they're referred from other agents. Like they don't know me personally, and I built my business before with, everybody knew me, knew someone in my family, knew someone I worked with in my office because it was the town I grew up in.
Okay, so we're gonna come back to that. What I'd like to say, so that whole internet and cold calling and all that, that's a whole nother animal. And so what you're doing is you're growing thick skin because you're gonna deal with that the rest of the time if internet and cold leads become your book of business. My first year, we did everything to see, then started tracking, and praise God, I could take cold calls and and internet lead generating off of my list because I was getting more business from my sphere. I had a hard time with that as well. But if you stay in that being your book of business, you're gonna have to develop thicker skin, and you're in the process of that. And the best thing I'll say is as long as you stay in lead generating activities all around, you'll constantly be filling up that pipeline. So one or two people are not going to be the end all be all. You'll get to a point where they're going to be one of 22 and they're not going to bother you. So let me give you some long-term hope for that, and we'll come back to it. Anisha, I just saw that you wrote, not allow showing without making. Oh, like the seller said, you have to make an offer in order to see it. I've seen some like that. Okay, so here's the deal though. Back to both, I think Lauren and Anisha, what I'll say is you should be optimistic because your activity is with buyers and sellers. You're just having to weed through the further reaching ones before you get those definite ones. That's part of real estate. That's what Joseph's first week was teaching about. Remember the haven't mets and bringing them in to your have mets. And back to the whole tricky market that we're in right now, Anisha, the bottom line is you have a buyer. When I first got in the business in 2008, everybody talked about listings, and I was like, heck no, I wanted to work with buyers because what I knew was a buyer would keep moving on to properties. A listing, you just have to kind of sit there and hope someone writes an offer. Now we're in a little bit different of a market now, obviously, but what I'm saying is you're with a buyer who will write an offer. So you're going to find the right one. You have money-making activity. All right, Jeremiah, anything you want to add, not to put you on the spot?
Yeah, sure. I think a couple of weeks ago, I was super overwhelmed because all this lead generation that I'd been doing for 4 to 6 months kind of popped all at once, and I I didn't really know what to do with it at the time. So I had a pep talk myself, and I adapted some old styles. You know, I used to keep hundreds of airplanes moving around the globe at any given time. So I was like, this is silly that I can't keep up with 6 people. So I kind of created a system to de-stress that situation, and so I didn't feel like I had to keep it all rolling around in my head. So I feel pretty good knowing that I've got my head wrapped around all the client base that I have now.
I think I want everybody to hear that. That is your future right there, is that you're all going to have it pop. So what you're doing and I know that Jeremiah got caught in the mix when our productivity coaching kind of dissolved. So when all that started happening, he didn't have a lot of support. So this is y'all's future, except you are going to have support. But that happened to me too. I literally had no business on my 8th month after wearing myself out. I had 8 closings in the last like 3 months of my year. I thought I was going to drive my car into a tree. I mean, I was just so overwhelmed. I was happy with the money, but I thought this is not fun. Then I learned and got the systems in place. That's when I started doing the buyer questionnaire. That's when I said, I can't sustain it in my brain. So I created systems that now have served me. So what I'm doing is methodically giving those systems to our office to try and get ahead of y'all's pop. But prepare for it. It's going to happen. You're never going to be. So like even back to the listing appointment, I remember in that market, we were so strict on not testing the market because sellers were not selling, that I went to a listing appointment, one of my first ones, and I had all the scripts. I had all the pep talk. They wanted to list it 10 or 15,000 over. It was somewhere in Park West. It would have been a fantastic sale. I stuck so to my guns about my scripting and what I knew about the market. They didn't hire me, and the dang thing sold at what I told them it wouldn't. I cried. I mean, I was like, why am I in this business? I did everything right, didn't get the listing, and then I was wrong. So I actually thought to myself, they weren't meant to hire me, because I would have been I would have done a disservice to them. Now, it probably took me a few days to get to that wise moment versus throwing things and chugging wine. But my bottom line is, y'all just prepare for that. That's part of the rock tumbler of real estate. Okay, so I'm really glad to hear that every one of you are coming from an encouraging place. That allows me now to give you a little bit of a challenge. Okay, so going back, I'm gonna share my screen again, going back to the agenda. The reason I asked you about if you're doing your phone calls and if you're doing, getting in person, all that stuff, there's a reason I asked you that, because y'all all have certain numbers of clients you're supposed to be meeting with a month, right? But I'm gonna review all these notes that I've been taking and make sure that I have everyone's written down. I think some of y'all's I never got that because you weren't on that exercise. I'm gonna figure out how to get you your numbers. So you're not gonna be left out, but I'm not gonna really run down that. Have you met with those number of buyers yet? I want us to focus. Be prepared next week to talk a little bit about what appointments you have made, because at that time, it'll be our 4th week with the CDP Fridays. So I want us to measure what our appointments have been that are with active buyers and sellers. And then we'll focus on that. Okay, so here is my challenge to y'all. So I told y'all about EPS, which is Chip Walton out of Mount Pleasant. He has a coaching program. It's called Elite Productivity Solutions, I think. And he has free phone calls and free Zooms and free conference things, everything. I want to know, show of hands. And of course it's let me see if I can see everybody. There we go. How many people have these times available to observe? Do you have a Monday or through Friday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, where you could catch in on 7:30 and you could watch and see what they're doing for their power hours? Do y'all have those hours available on at least one day next week? Okay. Part of what I want you, when you email me your 3 big rocks, I want you to tell me what days you have available. And do all of them if you can. Because I also want to say, if you say I have every day available, but you can only make it to 3 because of unforeseen circumstances, we need to track that. So I'm not going to hold you to going to every one, but I want everybody to go to at least one. And I want everyone to try to go to all of them, even if you're just observing. And Monique, I talked to her. She is the one, she's going to be on roll call. Sorry, she does a roll call every morning because she's got to make sure that everyone that's on that thing is not some random lurker from like Alaska. So I'm going to email her and let her know that you 6 might be engaged next week, but you may or may not participate depending on what you feel like. And then I'm going to let her run it. I don't really know the system. I haven't attended it either. I'm going to try to do the same thing. But goes back to you're feeling encouraged right now, which makes me very happy. There will come a time when you're going to feel discouraged. If you're in Ignite, then you have a support system. If you're not in Ignite, though, you might not have a support system. These kind of things are your support system that will help you hear and talk to others, but also maybe get some good scripts, some good nuggets, that kind of thing. So when you send me your 3 rocks for this coming week, tell me what you are able to attend, and I want us to talk about it, because at the end of the day, and I want to say this to you really quickly. Joseph is the one who said to me, I feel like you need to talk to them a little bit about this activity. So here, Joseph and I off to, on our own, we talk about y'all, but we talk about the program, and he was not able to listen in on this second half hour, this specific day. But his input, which I trust, and he's a lot wiser than I am when it comes to real estate, is that he wanted to see you guys do some stuff, get a little bit more engaged with this kind of activity, so that you'll unfortunately start to experience Nancy's tension, which is got to build a system, and then you might be kind of busy at the same time, and that's a tension of how do I balance my calendar? Okay, so I want next week to be a learning experience, but by all means, jump in and talk and participate and lock it in. I'm just saying, don't feel pressure that I'm going to ask you, like, did you learn a script? What is it? I'm not going to ask you anything other than, did you get involved with it? Was it helpful? Did you feel a support system? Did it inspire you? And then more importantly, did it actually focus your day where your 3 big rocks were then executed barely? Because maybe you had some like rah first thing in the morning that I'm not providing, right? I don't talk to y'all except 2 o'clock on Mondays if you come to the orientation. And then after that, I don't talk to you again till Friday. So that's what I want y'all to do. Thoughts, feelings, what do y'all think of that? All right. Great. As long as there weren't any like major concerns or major objections that I would blow out of the water. And I'm kidding. But just making sure there wasn't anything unforeseen from you to me that I could help you work through. But if that seems like a fair challenge, that you're going to try to give it the old college try, getting in there and seeing what it's like, while also executing your 3 rocks, I think that is a lovely enhancement to next week. Without a lot of pressure on you guys to do anything much more than just keep learning. All right, so where that leaves us now, we're at 2:09, perfect, wrapping up about 2:15. I'm going to leave the last few minutes for us to chat if we want to, versus me talking at y'all. But the same rule keeps applying. I want you to keep focusing on those 3. I also want you to hold those 3 accountable. Make sure at least one of those are actually going to get you paid either next week or 3 months from now. So if you start seeing 3 rocks that are all in your business, or that are on your business versus in your business, see if you might need to replace one and make it more of a money making activity, or get wild and crazy and add a 4th. So then you have 3 on your business or in your, I always get those two confused. You know what I'm saying? 3 working on your systems, and then 1 actually working towards getting you paid. Because that's what the budget model that we just talked about with Vince, the whole point of getting in this is so that you can sustain your life. That requires money. Money's good in that regard. So I want to get y'all paid. I don't want y'all to just have a lovely conversation every week. So I think that's it. Is there anything, the last few minutes, I want to make sure that there's nothing that you wish I were doing differently that I could do better next Friday. Is there anything you want to add or say, Lynn, I'd love to hear more on this, blah, blah, blah? No? Okay, that's good. So that's the good news is I'm going to continuously make sure I'm meeting your goals and expectations for me. That's very important. So I feel like, are y'all good with how the system is going where I have you tell me what yours are and then we see how you feel about it and then I give you a little bit of conversation? Are y'all liking the format? Yeah? Okay.
Yep.
All right. So what I'm going to do better is probably what I'm probably doing now that we're going to come probably by next week, I'll probably email all of y'all. I'll get organized with these notes and say, okay, here was your overall 4-week plan. Here's how many buyers you were supposed to meet with. I'll try to get those to you. And then we can kind of talk on that and then start the next set of 4 weeks with what happened in this first 4 and then making sure our next 4 are going to be just as good or even better. Okay. All right. I think that's it. And any of y'all, if you've emailed me or called me and I did not get back to you, send it to me again today. I had some stuff with my mom. I was out of town. Life hits, right? So I think some emails got slipped in the gap, which is like I said to Celeste recently, I'll work on your buyer presentation this weekend. But if you did ask something of me and I have not answered it, I can guarantee you I've probably lost it or forgotten it as of today. Send it to me because I can help you over the weekend. Okay. All right, guys, I just continue to be so proud of you. I'm impressed. I'm inspired and just really happy for y'all. And I like that. I told y'all, therapy is my dream job. So I love when I do feelings checks that y'all actually feel encouraged. That's my goal, to challenge you, but make sure you feel okay about everything. So I feel really good about it. This has been a good start to the first 4 weeks of it. So have an amazing weekend. Anything you need from me, always call me, let me know. But don't forget, texting's not great for me. So call me or email me. And then I'll keep doing whatever I can to see y'all do amazing. Okay.
All right. Thanks, Lynn.
Thanks so much.
Absolutely. Y'all have a good weekend and
you.
keep rocking it.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.